A slab of coral in the Persian Gulf, barely 5 miles long. No tourists, no press. The Revolutionary Guard keeps it off limits. They call it the Forbidden Island. Through that one rock, 9 of every 10 barrels of Iran's oil reach the world. Now a president says it out loud. We're going to take that island. Not bomb it. Take it. And run the oil market ourselves. He names the one country where America already did the same. Tehran's answer is blunt. One hardliner put it plainly. If you come, you will not return alive. This was never about a missile. It's a playbook. Break a regime by taking its wallet, not its capital. In the next 10 minutes, I'll show you how that playbook works. And why this island is where it either pays off or blows up in everyone's face. The chessboard just moved. And the move wasn't a weapon. Before you can talk about taking an island, you have to understand why anyone wants this one. Kharg isn't a military base. It's a cash register. A coral outcrop about 20 miles off Iran's coast, where the pipelines from the country's biggest oil fields all meet. Loading capacity runs near 7 million barrels a day. 9 of every 10 barrels Iran sells leave through here. Knock it out, and you don't dent the regime. You unplug it. So here's the tell. When American jets hit Kharg in the spring, they flattened the military sites and left the oil terminals standing. The president said it himself. Purposely not touched. You don't spare a target by accident. You spare it because you want it working later. For you. I'll tell you what I learned watching campaigns like this one. Bombing is loud. Seizing is patient. And the patient move usually wins. Now the board. Washington has Marines staged in the Gulf and plans for the island drawn up for months. Iran has the regime and the Revolutionary Guard that rings the place. And off to the side sits a model nobody's studying hard enough. A country where this exact play already ran. This was never an Iranian people problem. It's a leadership class that bet a nation's economy on one rock. But the story really starts with what each side put on the record. Two sides put two versions on the wire, and the gap between them is where this whole story lives. Start with Washington. The president posted it on Truth Social. His exact words, "At some point, the U.S. will be taking Kharg Island and other oil infrastructure points and assume total control of their oil and gas markets." His words, not mine. And then the part that matters most. He said America would do it. Much like we have with Venezuela. Read that twice. He's not describing a strike. He's describing ownership. Now Tehran. The regime won't say the quiet part, so a hardliner said it for them. The warning, on the record. If American forces come for the island, they will not return alive. And a second message went out to the world. Iran's oil stays available to everyone, or it stays available to no one. So weigh it. One side talks like a landlord. The other talks like a man holding a match over the furnace. Here's the read after years of watching these standoffs. The loud threat is rarely the real one. Tehran's "you won't return alive" is theater for a domestic audience. Washington's quiet, total control is the line to watch. But claims don't decide this. The iron does. Now look at what taking that island actually requires. Because seizing a defended rock is a different animal from bombing one. Start with the force. An amphibious assault doesn't roll off one ship. It rides an amphibious ready group, a big deck amphib that works like a small carrier, plus escorts, plus a Marine expeditionary unit. Call it a couple thousand Marines, their aircraft, and their landing craft, all floating offshore. Here's why the hardware matters. The big deck launches MV-22 Ospreys, tiltrotors that fly like a plane and land like a helicopter. They can put boots on that island from over the horizon before a single boat touches the beach. Below them, the new amphibious combat vehicle swims off the well deck and drives ashore. Cobra gunships ride shotgun overhead. And then there's my favorite part. The 5-inch gun on the escort destroyers. That's 5-inch diplomacy. Speaks slowly, lands accurately, and softens a beachhead before anyone wades in. But here's the problem nobody puts on the brochure. That island sits 20 miles off the Iranian mainland, well inside the reach of coastal anti-ship missiles and swarms of fast attack boats. Anyone who's planned an amphibious problem knows the landing isn't the hard part. The hard part is keeping those big, expensive amphibs alive while they're parked in someone's front yard. That's where the escorts earn their pay. The Aegis has a vote in that conversation. But taking the island was never the real weapon. The weapon is what you do with it after. And that's the part nobody's ready for. Here's what wasn't in the press release. The point was never to blow Kharg up. The point is to own what flows through it. Go back to that one line. much like we have with Venezuela. That's not a throwaway. That's the whole strategy, said out loud. So look at what already happened there. A regime Washington wanted gone. A military operation that removed the man at the top, and then the part that actually mattered. The oil kept pumping, but the revenue started landing in an account America controls. That's the move. You don't burn the cash register. You change who holds the key. Now run that template on Iran. Seize the terminal, keep the oil flowing, and every barrel that leaves becomes leverage instead of income for the regime. The pumps don't stop. The paymaster changes. This is cost imposition turned all the way up. We war-gamed versions of this more times than I can count. And the regime side never had a clean answer. Because you can survive a strike. You rebuild. You rally the country. You call it resistance. You cannot rally a country around an empty treasury. And remember, the people pumping that oil aren't the problem. The leadership skimming it is. Take the skim away, and the whole machine starts to wobble. Once you see that, the stakes change shape. Look at the chessboard. Now look at the chessboard. Because this rock doesn't just move Tehran. It moves everyone. Start with the money, and not Iran's. The whole world prices oil off this region. The threat alone helped push global growth forecasts down toward 2.5% for the year. And central banks are staring at fuel-driven inflation all over again. That's the leverage and the landmine in the same sentence. Squeeze Iran's wallet, and you squeeze every gas pump on the planet. Then the buyer. Most of that Kharg crude doesn't go west. It goes east, to China. So controlling the island isn't just a message to Tehran. It's a hand on a valve that Beijing drinks through. Add it to the tab in a much bigger game. Now the regime itself. This is the crack most people miss. There's a hardline faction inside Iran that's been working to wreck any deal, calling compromise surrender. Meanwhile, Washington floats talk of working with a newer, more reasonable leadership. When a president starts publicly sorting your government into people he'll deal with and people he won't, the knives come out internally, long before any Marine hits the beach. So 3 roads. Most likely, the threat stays a lever. The deal grinds on. No landing. Downhill. Iran torches its own exports to deny them, and oil spikes worldwide. The jump. A faction inside Tehran folds, and the regime cracks from the inside. Iran has decisions to make. And not all of them will be made by the same people. My read. And this is one analyst's call after 30 years of watching plays like this. Washington doesn't want the island. It wants the leverage the island represents. The threat to take Kharg is worth more unfired than fired. It pins the regime, rattles the hardliners, and keeps the oil flowing while everyone sweats. The day they actually land Marines is the day the strategy partly failed. Anvil math. When the cost curve crosses the capability curve, the doctrine has to bend or break. The moment seizing a country's revenue costs less than bombing its army, every standoff starts bending toward the wallet. Tehran's math just crossed. What's your read? Is taking the oil and banking the revenue smarter than a strike? Or is it just a slower, deeper way to get stuck in someone else's country? Drop it in the comments. The question of the day is pinned, and I'm reading the first 50 in real time. The sharpest takes shape next week's analysis. If this gave you a clearer read on the play, hit that like button. It tells YouTube to push it to the next person who needs it. Subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown. Ring the bell. The math doesn't stand still. I'm Anvil. Signing off from Theater Zero.